Right into it.
While we're waiting to, whoa, boy, that's on tonight. Hey, preacher, you kind of thought that the skies were talking to you? So anyway, before we get started, while we're waiting, if you haven't, please make sure you've signed in so we know that you're here. And if you would like to talk in public comments on any of the agenda items that are coming after that, please put that you'd like to talk on there. We'll ask for public comments and you can still get up. But that's how we're going to do it tonight. So if you're interested in talking on public comments, put that in which agenda item you'd like to talk about. But make sure you get signed in so you'll get the gold star next week when we check attendance. You're in charge of that, Joe.
I'll hand out the stars. I can do that.
Your stars from school.
I teach junior high kids.
That's good. I know it's 6:01.
Yes, sir.
I was looking at the unofficial clock I get. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody for attending the regular meeting of the Guymon City Council on this September 12th, 2023. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor David Player with Victory Memorial Methodist Church to give our invocation. Let's stand.
Let's pray together. Beloved Heavenly Father, tonight we want to thank you for your goodness toward each of us fearfully and wonderfully made by you. And as we look back, there's so much to be grateful for. Thank you especially for the love of our family and friends. Thank you for this community where we work together and serve together and are doing our best to build a strong community and a good future. Thank you for the good rains that fell Sunday night and yesterday, Lord. What a blessing. Thank you for a good summer and a good spring before that, breaking the drought and restoring pasture and helping our farmers have a good crop, especially now in the fall. Bless them. Lord, we want to thank you for those who are serving tonight, especially those in our leadership team. Thank you for their willingness to step up and be counted, to help lead us into a promising future. Give them wisdom, give them discernment as they deal with difficult issues. Help them to listen well and work together with all the various interests that make up our community. Bless all of our citizens, our marriages, our families. We present them to you tonight and we ask for your help and your blessing. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Mr. Alvedras, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I call this meeting to order. Agenda item number 2 is attendance roll call and determination of a quorum.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Alvedras?
Present.
Mr. Setzer?
Present.
Ms. Sanchez?
Present.
Mr. Eidson?
Here.
Ms. Hoffman? Mr. Petty?
Here.
Mr. Shannon?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, and we're going to do public comments at the top of the meeting tonight. There's several agenda items on it. I think some of you have some comments you'd like to make. So we're going to let you do that at this point in time. I'll get the roll here in a second. Anyway, I'll let you, public comments in the state of Oklahoma is an open meeting right. You're allowed 3 minutes. However, we cannot engage in a discussion with you. We cannot explain your questions at this point in time. Hopefully that explanation will come up later in the meeting as we get to the agenda items. So, if you would get that sheet, and then we'll get this thing kicked off. Okay. And also, when you do come to the podium, please give us your address, your name and your address, so that we can have that on the record. Anything else you need, Lavona? Okay. At this time, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of go first come, first serve. So if somebody'd like to talk about an issue on public comments, come to the stand and tell us who you are and what you want to talk about. And Sergio's the official timekeeper.
My name is Robert Jakes. I'm an attorney that practices here in the Panhandle quite often. I don't have an address in the Panhandle. I have an office address, which is 304 Northwest 5th Street here in Guymon. The agenda item I'm speaking on in behalf of and in favor of Isaac Peralta is the rezoning from his property that was approved by the Planning Commission about a month ago. Mr. Peralta has submitted plans to the council regarding his proposed building and project, which consists of 8 units intended to provide housing to young people, middle-income people, working people in the area near Sunset Street in Guymon. It is close to the schools, it is close to parks. He's provided a parking lot in the plans, as the council will now know. It fits in perfectly with the action plan or the development plan developed by this city council in 2016 or 2017, which calls for multifaceted living conditions, affordable housing in low density, high density, and medium density neighborhoods, which is just exactly what Mr. Peralta proposes to build. He is going to follow me and give you some sort of insight also, but I would refer to the land use goals provided for the city of Guymon. Provide opportunities for a variety of housing types that suits the need of all residences. Facilitate opportunities for unique development. In neighborhoods on page 20, 26, and 27 of the plan, it lists out goals of development for medium and high density neighborhoods. Revised zoning ordinance to permit the highest density single-family residential as well as multifamily residential density. That's the first point. Vacant properties, which this was, in the neighborhood offer an opportunity for infill development of new architectural compatible housing. And these housing are going to be architecturally compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. It's just multifamily instead of single residential. And these are all 2-bedroom spaces, 2,200 square feet spaces. There's a parking lot for 10 parking spaces. So it fits in fully and completely with the plan for the city of Guymon to provide affordable housing for its people. And also this is, like I said, near the school, near the park, near the golf course, where people that might be employed by the school, the park, or the golf course could avail themselves of this residential ability without the economic means maybe to purchase a house.
Okay. You're at the end of your time.
Okay.
But
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just tell them, I'm going to let you tell them, Sergio, you're holding the clock.
Okay.
All right. Okay, anybody else would like to talk? Come on up.
I didn't know about this until
Wait, Paul, let us know who you are.
Paul Reed, 1301 North Sunset Lane, Guymon, Oklahoma. You may call it rezoning. This is spot zoning by definition. The spot zoning is capricious in the least and inconsistent with surrounding neighborhood. I wrote a letter, I'm not going to read it to you, but it results in a safety concern on a street that is already unsafe. If you look at that area, from 5th Street to 12th Street, there's no stop sign. And then people blow through 12th Street into, maybe they stop at 5th Street, 15th Street, maybe not. And they go all the way to 24th. It's become like a highway. More than spot rezoning, we need probably safety to be, if we're talking about safety, we're talking about putting in like speed bumps where 14th Street would be, or lights or something. I don't know what the answer to that is, but we have had more than one wreck from people trafficking, especially on Friday and Saturday, 50, 60 miles an hour in that area. If you put something in there that houses that many families, you're just going to create more congestion and more problems. It's threatening also the property values of the locals. The neighbors that live in that area do not want this. And the other thing that it could do is erode the social fabric of our community. A lot of the reason that I live where I live is because I know the people that I live by. Terry Moore I've known him since I was 5 years old. Jack Rodman, who's passed on, his wife still lives across the street from me. We have been in Guymon for a long time. We don't need more traffic on Sunset Lane, North Sunset Lane. It looks like at least favoritism, but maybe cronyism or something more nefarious. But the people that live around that area do not want it. And I don't know one homeowner that lives in that area that is for this. So spot zoning by definition is good for one person, and that is the person that owns the property and not the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Come up.
Black paper out.
I'm not going to say, Terry, you're fine. I'm not your mother.
I'm Terry Moore, and I live at 1307 Sunset. I've lived there since 1982, raised 3 daughters there who had, when they turned 16, had to drive, back out the driveway, and it's been a constant headache. And I don't need to reiterate what Paul said. The thing I'm complaining about most is the zoning commission. Whenever I was at that meeting, And at the start of the meeting, Paul Montgomery said, does anybody have anything to say? Well, it's kind of a broad general question without any explanation. And we did not know at the time that we were supposed to get up and talk, because we were like fifth on the agenda. So whenever it came time for our agenda, Paul allowed the lawyer for Isaac Peralta to get up and talk, and then after he got through talking, then Isaac Peralta was allowed to get up and talk. And then after he got through talking, we said, now may we talk? And he said, no, you had your chance at the first of the meeting. And so then they went on to vote. But at the meeting, I'm not a lawyer, but Isaac Peralta was supposed to have plans on what the property was. That's in the zoning laws. He's supposed to have the size of the building. It wasn't. All we had was a drawing of the building and the inside of the building. It didn't show the size of the lot. It didn't show the size of the building. It didn't show the size of the apartments inside the building. And I'm going to read a few things that Avery Haynes said over here. The sketch plan provided does not show the following required items: outlines of existing and proposed buildings and structures, the size and location of the off-street parking lots, the type of surfacing proposed for the lot, and the planned structures and drives proposed for ingress and egress, meaning entrance and exit. Rather, the only sketch plan is a circled map and some artistic renditions of the proposed structure. There are no dimensions shown for the proposed structure on the lot, no plans for drives and off-street parking. The lawyer for Isaac did not say anything about the spaces for 10 parking spaces. Isaac didn't say anything about that. We had no idea how many. But if you've got 4 apartments and you got a couple living in there, they both are going to have a car. And if they 90% of the time, which another thing is 90% of the residents protested this rezone. And one of the ladies that didn't protest it was Mrs. Gunderson. She's 78 years old, and she lives in Gruber, Texas. Her property will be between the proposed building and the apartments that are there. And she does not want this. She didn't know what to do, and so I told her I would tell them that, you guys, that she, is really worried about it, because that's part of her plan for her retirement, if she has to go to a nursing home, to fund her nursing home. And if it loses 20 or 30% of its value,
You have 10 seconds.
$90,000. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Brown, come on up.
Hello, my name is Steve Brown. I live at 1327 North Sunset Lane, and I have the distinction of living right across the street from this. The issues have been brought up about traffic. I know during the zoning meeting, Mr. Peralta stated he drives down Sunset and he doesn't think there is a problem. I can tell you at 8 o'clock in the morning, there is a difference between driving down Sunset and trying to pull out of your driveway onto Sunset. It is bad. I know Dr. Reed alluded to the exact same thing. The traffic is bad. 2 other things I wanted to mention. After the zoning meeting, in conversation with 2 other people that work in the housing industry within Guymon, that have places that are not full. So we would just be adding to the problem of people that would actually be affected in this neighborhood by adding more housing when they can't get their housing filled. And then finally, this one has bothered me since about the end of May, beginning of June. I used to have my equipment stored in that lot when it was Johnny Curtis's. I spoke with Mr. Peralta. We worked out a deal. I would just keep mowing it until as long as I kept my stuff there until he needed me to move it, which he did, and I moved it. I went through all of the proper channels with the city to make sure my property was moved at a spot and it was basically up on pavers according to code. But I do remember at the end of May, June, there was a 10-day notice sent out which had pictures some of which was my property, which was taken care of, but I know part of that, there's a pile of fence posts sitting next to a fence back there that has still not been moved after 3 months. So my concern is somebody wanting to build property that, I mean, when I get a 10-day notice or I see one, I take it seriously, because the city took the time to do that. And nothing has been done about this issue. The trailer that was there didn't get moved until August 15th. That was 60 days after. So I know you've received a lot of letters, a lot of emails from the 90% of the people that are against this. I'm just urging you to consider what everyone has said, and I wish you luck in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Anybody else? Come on up.
How are you guys doing today? For you, or most of you who don't know me, I'm pretty sure you do know me now. My name is Isaac Peralta. I'm the one who's proposing my structure to build on Sunset Lane. There's a lot of rumors that I can address that, you know, I've heard that are pretty ridiculous, of building a trailer park there, you know, or making, as soon as I get approved for this, to make the structure bigger. My plan is here, you know, to build whatever is going to be built, and that's it. You know, not to build more than whatever is intended to be built. To kind of summarize, you know, the stuff that I'm hearing behind, or whatever people have just commented on, you know, as far as like Mr. Brown moving his trailers and stuff like that. The grass and all that, I wanted to go get measurements. There was no way of me finding property stakes out there whenever there's a metal trailer right there next to my property, and it just interferes with the metal detector. That's why I needed the stuff moved off. He's talking about something about stakes on that. I don't know whose stakes those are. They're like little itty bitty pieces of wood about that big. It's not a big issue. I could throw those in the dumpster. I'm not making that a big deal. 90% of the people who did complain about it, who don't want it, it's an opinion of theirs. I'm with you guys trying to do something better for the community and make affordable housing for people. That's my plan here. I don't come here to make, you know, enemies. Come here to make friends, be good to the neighborhood. That's one of the reasons why I haven't really kind of bothered anybody up here on the stage. I have talked to people, you know, about comments and stuff, but I don't really like to throw more wood in the fire when there's already a bunch of chaos and stuff happening. I like to wait towards the end, hear everybody's deal, you know, and I can talk to you guys about it. But yes, I'm planning. I did drop some plans. The guy said that there was no plans. There is plans that I showed to you guys, which you guys should have gone at the beginning of this meeting. There is an 8-car space, and I actually just talked to Mr. Chad yesterday, saying that I wanted to add 2 more for a handicap and for van accessible. And if I have to push back the property, which I can because I still have 113 feet that I still am able to use. None of my cars will be interfering with traffic. There will be an entry and an exit, so it'll be safe for whoever's leaving to look left and right. I don't know who's going to be living there, guys. I don't know if it's going to be someone working at Seaboard, somebody working at Walmart. I don't care who it is. I'm not going to be judging, but I know everybody who's going to be living there has a driver license, and they're going to be in, you know, to their knowledge, to be able to drive and be safe enough to know when to go and when it's their turn. So I don't think my property or my structure that I'm wanting to, you know, build is going to interfere with anything. As far as safety, people are going to be screened, people are going to be checked. There's
You
not
got
just
10
gonna be-
seconds.
You know, so that'll conclude it. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Anybody else like to put their 2 cents in? Okay, any other public comments? Any other public comments? All right, we will move on. Agenda item number 4, approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda item 4.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Idson. Alvedras.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 5 is presentation of the 2022 audit and performator by Marcy Twyman with Crawford and Associates and acceptance of the audit. It's all yours, Marcy.
Glad to be back. Usually Frank Crawford, our president, is here presenting this. He's regretful that he can't be here, but boy, I'm glad I get to be here. I get to see some familiar faces, some new ones too. So we're going to talk about your audit. First of all, we'll just say your auditor gave you a clean opinion on your financial statements, which you should have this rather large book with a lot of numbers in it. And most people don't read through that whole book, so our firm has developed, I know, right, that's funny. Yes, so our firm has developed a financial analysis of all of those numbers that are in this book to help you evaluate the financial health of the city. And we call that a performator, and you should have a copy of this. We're not going to go all the way through this either. We're just going to hit the high points because I know you have a lot of business to take care of tonight. First of all, we rate your city's finances on a scale of 1 being the very worst to 10 being the very best. So your performator rating for this year can be found on page 5, and the page numbers are really hard to see. They're in the bottom right corner. But on page 5, you'll see that your overall rating, which we took up several different financial ratios and we combined them all, weighted them, and overall your score was 8.8, which is very good. We rarely have cities that rate that high. Now, it is a little bit, just ever so slightly down from last year, just a tenth of a point. So what we're going to go through, rather than looking at every ratio, we're going to look at the ones that changed the most from last year. The first one that changed significantly is located on page 9. And this is related to the general fund, what we call unassigned fund balance. That's the fund balance in the general fund that can be used for anything. There's no strings attached to it. There's nothing, that somebody said we're going to use this for a certain purpose. So this year, you can see it went down from 103% of annual revenues down to 28%. Now that's a big drop. And the reason for that big drop was in the 23 budget, you were planning to spend some of that fund balance that you had on hand. 103% that you had last year is really, really, really high. And probably related to ARPA funds, got that nice little money from the government. So in the 23 budget, we're planning to spend some of that. The 28% of annual revenues is actually still a good rating. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that last year it was, way over the top. So it went from a 10 down to a 9.5, okay? So not significantly bad, but just something that changed significantly from last year. Okay, your financial performance, which is the middle section of your performator, starts on page 16. Y'all are doing really good in this section because you got all 10s. So doing well for looking at what you did the past year, making sure your revenues are more than your expenses and that you're covering your costs, that kind of a thing. So we're not going to talk about that. Did really, really great in that area. The next ratio that changed from last year is on page 26. And if you'll notice, we put the rating down in the bottom right corner. If they're green, that means you're good. If they're yellow, that means satisfactory. And if they're red, that means this could probably use some improvement. So that's what we find with the revenue dispersion ratio. And what this looks at, it tells you how much of your revenue that you have control of. That way, if you needed to raise, additional monies, you could do it without having to go to somebody else to get permission. Well, this year, you had a lot of federal grant revenue. You had the FAA grant, you had a ARPA grant, and so all of that is money that you have to get permission from other people. They have to award that to you. You don't have control over that. So that's why this ratio went down so much. That's a good thing and that's a bad thing. What I would take away from this is just to understand that next year you might not be getting that revenue, okay? And I think the 23 budget is aware of that and they were cognizant of it. So that's the only thing that I would point out about this, is those are usually one-time resources. And then the next one that went down was the debt service load. That's the very next page. And it went from, this looks at how much of the money that you spend is spent on paying debt. So for every dollar that you spent last year, 20 cents of it went to pay debt. That's more than last year that was only 18 cents. And the reason that it went up so much was because you started paying the soccer complex debt. So that one, went down because you're starting to pay that off. Fortunately, that one pays off in a few years anyway, so that's not going to be, hanging around very long. So those were the reasons that it went down just ever so slightly, but truly you all are doing very good financially. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them. If I don't have the answer right now, I sure can get it for you.
None for me, thanks, Marcy.
So, I know last year due to the ARPA monies and everything else, we got a really good performance rating, which we're pretty close this year on it also.
Right.
So I think you've covered most of them, but is there anything that really makes Marcy Twyman's ears stick up in the ear when you look at us?
Not too much. The fact that you're spending a lot of the general fund balance this year, you just need to be aware that you're not going to be able to do that every year.
Right.
So that would be my only thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody, any other questions?
No, always a pleasure, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a safe trip home if you're leaving tonight. Okay. Agenda item number 6 is discussion and possible action to approve ordinance number 891, and an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Guymon, Oklahoma, also known as the 1300 block of North Sunset of the city of ordinance of Guymon, Oklahoma, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and declaring an emergency. At this time, we have our crack staff from Code Enforcement here, so we'll turn it over to you.
I am the Planning and Zoning Administrator for the City of Guymon. A lot of you guys know me as a Code Enforcement Officer, but yes, I wear many hats. So, starting from the beginning, I will let you know that May 22nd of 2023, the owner of IIP Investments did apply to rezone the property from an R1 to an R2. I know that there might be some questions. We'll save it until I'm done with the presentation, just to kind of give you all of the staff report that I did present to the Planning and Zoning Board. So, for the staff report that I have on that, the rezoning is for the owner of IIP Investments to build a quadplex to provide more housing for the community. The zoning is an R1 in both 1994 and the 2018 zoning map, and the future land use is medium density residential, as provided in your packet today. So I did receive the plans from the owner. If I made copies so that you guys can have one as well. I'm gonna go around because they're big copies.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
I was looking for somebody who could read.
As far as the staff recommendation in my department, we did recommend the zone. We see that he meets all requirements, as well as all the building codes will be met if he will. It's not like he's not going to get a building permit. He will need to have a building permit if he is wanting to do this. So we have many codes that we follow by. Our building inspectors are really good at getting all those in order. As far as inspections go, we have certain requirements. So if there's any questions, I'm sure there is, I can answer everything for you. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. The planning, we did take it to the Planning and Zoning Board, and they did recommend the approval as well.
In your expertise, do you see parking being an issue? As far as all the dimensions on the drawing, are they, I know it's approved by staff, but there seems to be a lot of concern with parking and getting out of there and being a quadplex.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So with the plans provided, obviously he has 2 per apartment complex, but our main concern was for ADA compliant as well, which I believe is 6 more parking. Every 6 parking spots needs to have an ADA compliant. If needed, he does have extra room in the back, as the plans show. It doesn't show, it just shows from, there's more in the plans for that, but from what the owner of IIP Investments did say, he will have 100 feet extra that he's not using or he doesn't plan to use at the time. So if needed, we could, let him know that we need to push that back and add more parking spaces as well. But he does have a means of egress and
So we're talking 4 units?
yes,
How many buildings?
1.
So how many residents? Approximately?
8.
So it's not like a huge influx of people or anything, is it?
No, sir.
Was the
Go ahead.
Was the application that Mr. Peralta presented to the zoning committee done properly within time and content?
So the application was filled out as shown in the packet. As far as all of the necessities that we needed for the board and the planning and zoning meeting, everything was met to requirements. He was not asked for more information, and he does have everything provided. If I could also add on there, the protesting letters that was turned in a timely manner was 55% of the property, according to our planning director.
In your professional opinion, is this spot zoning?
In my professional opinion, absolutely not. It is within the 300 radius, a house away. You can see it from the property. Seeing as all of the other zoning cases that have been presented in the past, there has never been an issue like this where people feel like it's spot zoning until now.
Curious, is spot zoning even illegal in Oklahoma?
Absolutely. So let me give you the definition of a spot zoning according to the OML Planning and Zoning, and the Board of Adjustments handbook. Spot zoning. Zoning a relatively small area from the surrounding areas is illegal unless the government established a reasonable basis for the spot zone. Factors for determining reasonable include size of area and its particular characteristics, relation to comprehensive plan, degree of change in uses allowed, relative harm and benefit to owner, neighbors, and community.
Are the plans that Mr. Peralta presented to the board and also to us normal plans that we would accept with any other contractor or builder?
So the plans that he turned in for the planning and zoning meeting, absolutely, and for the council, absolutely. However, whenever, let's say if passed, and he needs to provide plans for building, for doing the driveway, for doing the building, we need to have actual architectural plans, and it does need to go through a plan review with our building inspectors, as well as our permit technician. So we would ask for more detailed plans as far as which way the door is swinging, how many inches is the outlet going to be, instances like that.
And then once those plans are given to the proper people, does that come to us again, or does that just stay with our code? Or
that stays with our code due to a lot of people saying that we have a very strict code. A lot of people really have to readjust everything to make it to state as well as internationally done. Properly. So, yes.
I have a question. Mr. Petty, in our time together, we've done several of these. I just want to ask again, any type of legal repercussions in a rezone if the council either approves or disapproves of the decision as far as legal repercussions from any party?
Well, the applicant or opponents would have the option to appeal whatever judgment the council decides. It would be an appeal to district court. So in that sense, there could be a possible legal effect, yeah.
Thank you.
Other than that, none. There's no liability on behalf of the council or the city for acting in you're acting in a legislative capacity. So that's your job, and you're not exposed to civil liability for doing that.
Thank you.
Anybody, anything else? Any other discussion? Any other questions?
Would you like to know the difference between an R1 and an R2?
Yes,
You
please.
guys know that? Okay, so an R1 is single-family residential. The difference between an R1 and an R2 is that an R1 does not accept multifamily dwellings as far as a quadplex, which is the situation. So in an R2, he may still put a house, if he wants to change his mind, he may still put a single-family residential house because it's any uses permitted in an R1 as well. The added differences on there is he may put a duplex, if applicable with our ordinances and state laws and codes, multifamily dwellings, room or boarding houses, accessory buildings, and uses customarily incidental to the above that I stated at the location, as well as the setbacks. So the setback from the front yard would be 25 feet if you wanted to build an actual structure. From the side yard, it would be 5 feet, and from the rear, where the alley is at, it would have to be 20 feet. In an R2 versus an R1, I believe, is from the rear, it would be a 10-foot setback. So we're restricting that a lot more in an R2 for the setbacks.
So this came recommended from staff, and it went to Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission passed it.
Yes, sir.
And then it came, and it's here right now,
Yes,
correct?
it was approved for recommendation on the Planning and Zoning Board as well, yes.
So to your knowledge, everything's been done legally, been done by the book?
Absolutely. At this point, it's just the protesting letters where it feels like the issue is really at hand here, because they do meet all the requirements, and we do have multiple codes that say otherwise. So, as far as all of the building plans, everything does need to still come to our department to get everybody's approval as far as professional goes.
And that's why we have boards in place for this.
Absolutely, and that's why we have codes in place. Building codes, commercial codes, all that stuff, everything. If you wanted to do any other type of work, let's say, for example, he wants to do a huge duplex on there, he needs to meet the building codes. However high, whatever the height is going to be, you need to have those setbacks on the sides as well. Just in case for an emergency, if the building collapsed, it would not hit the neighbors. We need to make sure that we have all those in place for a reason.
So does this mean ADA approved?
ADA compliant, we would make sure that it would meet ADA compliant parking. And he did say, I think we put it on the plans, that there's going to be a ramp for disabled people as well.
The bottom two, I guess, will be handicapped.
Yes, sir. Any more questions?
Sorry.
Oh, good.
I know years ago we were considered to be in a housing crisis. Would you still consider us in a situation where we are in indeed of dire need of more housing?
I can't give you my personal opinion. As far as professional opinion, from everybody that's calling to City Hall, everybody that has been directed to me about finding affordable homes, yes, we are in desperate need of that. However, we do have certain, I don't want to say questionnaires, but we have certain things that people do here in Guymon to show whether we are lacking that or we have more than needed. And I believe that was sent to the city manager.
Thank you.
Of course.
You know, I've watched this, and we've got a wonderful group of gentlemen and ladies that serve on our boards, especially these two boards. I did receive a phone call this morning from Mrs. Gunderson. She was unable to attend tonight. She lives in Groover. She owns the one house that if we rezone this, she will be surrounded on three sides by R2 property. I don't know what that'll do to the value of her house. I'm not a real estate agent. Don't have a crystal ball. Nobody knows. But that's been the part that's concerned me about this. I think that you get into times that, I'll be honest with you, I've had more phone calls over this issue and more personal visits than anything in 12 years. And, you know, I really look at it, I'm looking at it from a different view than it meets everything. I think there's a consideration of somebody's existing property that's bothering me. And so I'll make that as a comment. Yes, we need housing. I've said in this, I've worked on housing. But I'm also a firm believer that there are sometimes you have to make decisions that may not follow everything due to other circumstances.
Absolutely. I'm a code enforcement officer, and nobody likes to talk to me, but when this case came, I got pretty popular.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Anything else? Well, at this time, does anybody have a motion?
I make a motion to approve ordinance number 891, an ordinance amending the zone ordinances and zoning map of the city of Guymon, Oklahoma, aka 1300 block of North Sunset of the code ordinances of the city of Guymon, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewithin, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
You have a motion and a second.
Sorry, who seconded? Sanchez?
Nay.
Hudson,
No.
Censor,
Aye.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Peterson.
Nay.
We've got 3 nays, 2 ayes.
Okay. All right.
So no declaring an emergency there, right?
We didn't pass it, so
Right.
okay, moving on. Agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible action to approve ordinance number 892, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances and zoning map of the city of Guymon, Oklahoma, also known as 106 South Ellison of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Guymon, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and declaring an emergency. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so another owner in the city of Guymon would like to rezone his property from a C2 to a C3, just so that he can meet all of the setback requirements. The difference between a C2 and a C3 is that a C3 does not require setbacks, as far as 0 setback from the alleyway is where he's wanting to build. He did put in a building permit application. We did put that on hold until he was able to rezone the property. We have had no protesting letters, and this is the staff recommendation. So we did recommend the rezone the property from a C2 to a C3. The reason for the rezone is for the owner shop to meet setbacks, and the C2, the zoning for the property in 1994 and 28 zoning map was a C2, and the future land use shows as the downtown transition. We noticed in C3 zoning, it has no setbacks in the status, and it states, use is permitted, any use permitted in a C1 or a C2, except mini storages will be permitted in a C3 district. Do we have any questions? Don't have anything else on that.
You didn't have a lot on this one, did you?
No.
Everything's done by the book, everything checked out, planning and zoning.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions?
I make a motion we approve ordinance number 892, an ordinance amending the zoning ordinances and zoning map of the city of Guymon, Oklahoma, aka 106 South Ellison of the Code of Ordinances for the city of Guymon, providing for severability, repealing ordinances in conflict herewith, and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez,
Aye.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Censor,
Aye.
Hudson,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
And 5 ayes.
Make a motion that we declare item 7 an emergency.
Second that.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez,
Aye.
Hudson,
Aye.
Alvedras,
Aye.
Censor,
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 8 is discussion and possible action to approve the clinical experience agreement between the Guymon Fire Department Ambulance and Memorial Hospital of Texas County. Chief here, you want to talk about it, or Mike? Or that's the brains of the outfit's going to talk tonight.
Get me today.
There you go.
So this is actually a renewed contract. We made some changes based on the advice of legal counsel. This contract allows us, or this agreement rather, allows us to send students to Memorial Hospital, Texas County, and for them to gain a clinical experience in that facility, working with the nurses, getting hands-on experience with patients while they're still students in the class that we're offering. Right now we're offering, in conjunction with Texas County, an EMT class to residents of Texas County who are willing to agree to serve in Texas County for 2 years. That's being funded by the county, taught there at the department, and we're renewing this agreement so that we'll have an opportunity to send students over to the hospital to gain clinical experience.
Makes it a little easier than driving to Poto or Amarillo.
Makes it easier than driving somewhere else.
How many students
Plus
do
they
you
get to
have?
work with the nurses that we work with on the day-to-day basis. So,
How many students do you have?
right now, we have 18 students. We started with 20. We had a couple of them drop because they said, this isn't for me. But we have 18 students. We're about halfway through the class, so we're just starting to send them out to clinical sites. And they're doing great.
And they get like hands-on experience at the emergency ER and all that?
They'll gain hands-on experience at the ER, and then they'll also have opportunities to gain hands-on experience there at the fire department. Another use for this are paramedic students that we train through Guymon Tech and OPSU. We'll also be able to participate in clinical experiences. We'll have some more agreements that we do with other facilities because we send them out a little bit further to gain even more experience. But so we'll see some more of these agreements, but this one is for our local hospitals.
Excellent.
Any other questions, discussion?
I make a motion that we approve clinical experience agreement between the Guymon Fire Department Ambulance and Memorial Hospital, Texas County, item 8.
Second.
I have a motion in 2 seconds.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Heitzen.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Thank you, Chief. Agenda item number 9 is discussion and possible action to approve invoice number 141892 in the amount of $51,199.60 to Guernsey for the Guymon Main Street Phase 1 Water and Water Storm Evaluation Project. Invoice is attached. Mr. Shannon, you want to elaborate?
Certainly. This project started, it's about 3 years old. We run, we're out of money for this project. This will be the last one. So we know what we have now, so it's a good footprint where we start building up. So if we decide to redo Main Street and the facilities up and down Main Street, so.
And this is mostly on drainage and underground.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion, motion?
I make a motion we approve invoice number 141892 in the amount of $51,199.60 to Guernsey for the Guymon Main Street Streetscape Phase 1 and Water Storm Evaluation Project, item 9.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Setzer.
Aye.
Heitzen.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 10 is discussion and possible action to approve pay request number 2 in the amount of $303,930.65 to United Golf LLC for the Sunset Hills Golf Course Irrigation Project. Pay request number 2 is attached.
Everything's going great.
Did the ground soften up?
Just a
For
little
them
bit.
out there?
Just a little bit. If we knew it was going to start raining, we'd have probably done this, I'm sure, 3 or 4 years ago. So. But we're predicting, I think we're about 65% done. So they're coming right along. So
Looks
good.
Outstanding. Make a motion that we approve pay request number 2 in the amount of $303,930.65 to United Golf LLC for the Sunset Hills Golf Course Irrigation Project, item 10.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Setzer.
Aye.
Heitzen.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 11 is discussion and possible action to approve order of determination for trash, weeds, and grass located at Funk Division Lot 1, north half of Lot 2, Block 36, lot size is 75 by 140. It's also known as 912 North Quinn. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So I'm bringing this case back to you from last month. We're just basically reapproving the dates because there was an issue last time it was presented. The time frame that we proposed to take bids and do the work on the property did not match up correctly for it to be approved again. So that's why I'm coming back to get reapproval dates to start the work, to be able to take bids and to complete the work starting November 15th through November 22nd. And there has been no change to the property since I presented this to you last month. And I have updated pictures for you as well.
Did I read it correctly that the homeowner was okay, they said go ahead and do it?
Yes.
Well, there's,
And these are from today.
Anyhow, the hire the Boy Scouts and save some money. All right. Any discussion or questions?
I make a motion, we approve order of determination for trash, weeds, and grass located Funkell, item 11.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Setzer.
Aye.
Heitzen.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 12 is discussion and possible action to approve order of determination for trash, weeds, and grass located at North Park, Lot 3 and 4B, Block 34, also known as 1528 North Ellison.
Yes, so 1528 North Ellison, I followed my procedure. The case started on June 15, 2023. I did send a 10-day notice to the tenant. Turns out the house is vacant, so I did send another 10-day notice to the owner. I have not received anything back, so I did send the notice to clean property. No improvements, no contact information, nothing. And then I did my procedure for notice of hearing. I posted on the property, I posted on the newspaper. Again, no improvements, no contact information. So I would like to, I'm asking to approve the order of determination and would like to do the work for the weeds and trash abatement at 1528 North Ellison. The work would be started by September 13th, which is tomorrow, and I would like to do the work myself so that we can get that done a lot faster than going through the whole 3-month bid process. And I do have pictures from today as well.
Thank you.
Pretty bad.
I definitely have my work cut out for me.
Don't get lost in the weeds.
You estimated that one about 1,500.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve the order of determination for trash, weeds, and grass located at North Park, L3 and 4, B34, AK 1528 North Ellison, item 12.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Setzer.
Aye.
Heitzen.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Okay, we have no new business. Got my computer's not picking up the next agenda. I'll see if Josh's does.
Which one are you doing? The utilities?
Mine kept coming up with the.
Mine was too.
Okay. So we're staying, so we'll reconvene as the Guymon Utilities Authority. Agenda item number 2, we've already done. Agenda item number 4 is approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 13th, 2023 meeting.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 13, 2023, item 4.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Setzer.
Aye.
Heitzen.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 5 is presentation by Jim Roberts with Ardura on our groundwater study. So we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Jim. Break it out of here.
Pull this around so I can look at you guys while we're looking at the presentation. All right, as everybody, we've met before. I'm Jim Roberts. I'm senior hydrogeologist with Ardura Group in Oklahoma City. And we just finished a mapping and geophysical imaging study out here just northeast of town, just on the west side of Optima. And so what I want to go through with you guys tonight, I was going to show you the results of this study. And I want to preface everything right up front by saying we're very encouraged about what we saw and what we found. So I just want to throw that out there right up front. But the study area, the large square that you see right there, that is 4 townships. That's about 144 square miles. And so what we did is we did a geologic mapping study, and we mapped that 144 square miles using logs that we downloaded from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. There are about 400 of them we went through, and we used those logs to pick the base of the Ogallala Formation. And then, and we mapped that across that 144 square miles, and the purpose of that was to provide some regional context for interpreting the geophysical data that we collected. And we also just wanted to see where we thought where the water would be on a regional basis. We can go to the next slide. So one of the biggest challenges right now is to replace this lost capacity. And the city has lost the capacity over a period of years. This isn't something that just occurred in the last year or two. But the lost capacity has to do with partly age of the wells and having to retire those wells, but also the biggest issue are the declining groundwater levels in the aquifer. These plots, as you see here on the left, those are 2 plots from a couple of Water Resources Board wells. One is northwest of the area that we studied in detail, about 3 miles. And that's the one on the right. And then the other one, the plot you see there on the far left, that is just to the southeast of Guymon. But the water levels in Guymon area have dropped about 110 feet since 1966. And they're still going down at an average of about 2 feet a year. And also on the right-hand side of that plot, now that is a plot of the wells that have been drilled in the Oklahoma, in the Ogallala, if you will, since about 1945. The double dashed line there, the 2 red lines, it says, where you see, that's Texas County. So those are all the wells that have been drilled in Texas County. And the purple line above that, that's all counties combined. But in Texas County, there's about a little over 1,600 wells that have been drilled. And if you'll notice there on the right end of that plot there, starting about 2010 through the end, 2015, that's when we had the drought. So there was a pickup in drilling activity during the drought. And so the bottom line there is what we're seeing continued pumping pressure on the aquifer. And that has in large part been the reason why Guymon is having to go out to the northeast side of town to find a reliable water supply. We can go to the next one. So this is a conceptual model of what we were looking at from the geology. This is a picture from one of the publications that we reviewed. It shows the early Ogallala deposition, and you can see there to the west, that was the Rocky Mountains were standing high at that time, and so erosion of the Rocky Mountains, all that sediment was shed off to the east across the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma Panhandle, Kansas, Nebraska, and on up into the Dakotas. But this is a pretty good representation, I feel like, of what was going on as these sediments were being eroded off the Rocky Mountains. We had this erosional surface that it was being deposited onto. And you can see where we had these old valleys that were being cut into the erosional surface, and then all those were filled subsequently with sediment. And the sediment that it was subsequently filled with, those valleys, are the Ogallala aquifer. So what we're trying to do with our study is we wanted to map these conditions in our area and just see where it was deeper and where the thickest accumulations of Ogallala sediment had occurred. So we can go next to the next slide. So the first thing we did, as I said, was we took the 144 square mile area, the 4 townships, and we used logs from the Water Resources Board to develop a map on the base of the Ogallala. The map on the left is the elevation on the bottom of the Ogallala, and the map on the right is the total thickness of the Ogallala. And then the white square in the middle, that's our target. That's just the area that we've focused on, and that's where we did our geophysical imaging. But what the colors are telling us is the orange up there, those colors are telling us that the depth of the Ogallala is fairly shallow in the Guymon area. Guymon is in the southwest corner of these maps. So the orange area is pretty much where Guymon's existing wells are now. We're moving out to the northeast toward the greens where the depth to the bottom of the aquifer is much deeper. And similarly, the Ogallala is much thicker in this area. So the thing that it shows is out here to the northeast toward Optima and on out toward the Hooker area. This is getting pretty deep out here, and we're looking at nice, big, thick accumulations of Ogallala sediment. And what's nice is we see that the target site that we were looking at, that we focused on, is right there as we're trending off out into the deeper part of the basin. And so it's in a very good place, geologically speaking. Next slide. So to follow up with the mapping, we focused on section 1 of 3 North 15 east of the Cimarron Meridian. It's about 640 acres in total size. It's located about 1.5 miles, 2 miles west of Optima. But here is where we did our resistivity imaging, and the transects that you see, those there were 3 east-west, basically, or northeast, southwest, and there were also 3 northwest-southeast transects. So 6 altogether. And then each transect was comprised of 2 lines that were overlapped. And I'll talk about the overlapping here in a minute. But basically what we're doing with resistivity imaging is we're inducing an electrical current into the subsurface using electrodes. And then we're recording the voltage drop that comes back to us. Then we use Ohm's law to convert that information into a resistivity. And so when we're imaging the resistivity of the subsurface, the soil and the rock and the fluids that are contained therein. And the resistivity of the soil and the rock, as we'll show, what we did is we ended up color coding everything, and all the measurements are reported in ohm meters. But we'll get to the color coding here in just a second, so we can just go on to that next slide. I wanted to show this to you because I'd mentioned that we overlapped the survey lines. And the reason we do, the physics of the technology is such that when you go and you image, you end up with this trapezoidal shape. So in the middle you have coverage, full coverage, but out towards the end you're losing coverage. So we end up overlapping the lines so that we don't miss that middle piece, and then we get a full coverage. As if you look at the bottom figure, you get full coverage across the entire length of the transect. Next slide. So this is a color code that we came up with for our survey that we finished. It's color coded so that we can make an interpretation of what we're seeing in the images. So higher resistive rocks, the ones that are low conductive, they don't conduct the current very well, are the coarse grain sediments. So like coarse sand and gravels do not conduct an electrical current very well. But as we get into finer grain sediments, the the conductivity increases as we get into fine. And that's partly the reason of that is because there's fluid contained in there. But the finer grained nature of the rock brings the resistivities down. So in our color code scheme that we're going to be looking at here, coarser sediments are on the orange side of things, and the finer grain stuff is toward the blues and the purples on the less resistive over there on the left. And then the browns are just the stuff that's in between, the not so fine, it's not super fine grain. So when I talk about fine grain, those are like shales and clays. The coarse grains are like sands and gravels. So we can go to the next slide. This kind of gives you, so that you can see the color code over on the right, and then the resistivity values associated, the range of resistivities associated with each of the color codes. And looking at what we saw is that anything over 100 ohm meters looks like it's pretty resistive, and we feel pretty good about that, probably representing coarse sands and gravel deposits. The more conductive stuff, where we get down less than 40 meters of, 40 ohm meters of resistivity, those are the finer grain sediments. And then there's a possibility that there may be underlying the Ogallala in the Permian sediments, there may have been some dissolution of gypsum or something along those lines that would cause us to see some lower resistivities or conductive rocks down in the deeper subsurface underlying the Ogallala. And we're going to actually investigate the nature of that as part of the follow-up. Next slide, please. So this is a three-dimensional look, if you will, of the 6 transects that we laid out. You'll see the oranges and the browns and those colors. Those are what we feel like are coarse sands and gravels. And in looking at that, particularly like there on the left, we identified a couple of channels there where at one point in time we were thinking about looking into the idea of putting a horizontal water supply well in. So we actually identified a nice channel where that would be possible. But the priority is to get about 3 million gallons of water a day to town right away. So we're focusing on that. We're going to come in, as we'll talk about in a minute, and we want to validate what we've seen. We will need to come in here. We feel like we know what's going on. We have a good geological model and understand, but the drilling and collection of samples and some water quality data, as well as recording some geophysical logs to tie with this data. Once we have that, then we'll come up with final locations for completing the water supply wells. But we'll come out here first, and we'll end up needing to drill some test holes. The green dots that you see there on the right, and then the little vertical green lines you see in the figure on the left, those are locations that we would like to drill test holes. Next slide, please. So we found 7 locations, 7 test hole locations. The table to the left there lists the identification numbers of each of the borings, and then also their estimated depth. I want you to note the depths on the right-hand side of the table. 455 feet will be the shallowest. That's about the deepest Guymon's current wells are now, around 455 feet. So we're looking, based on the resistivity imaging, we're looking at drilling test holes down to over 600 feet. And in one case, there, the CD-05, I'll show you that cross-section, that image there, but we're going to drill that one to 800 feet. So that's nearly twice the depth of Guymon's current wells. So with that, so why does that matter? Well, it matters because the more thickness we have, the more saturated thickness, the more water column we have. Next slide. So these next series of slides, and we'll go through them pretty quick, but the green vertical line, these are where we propose and recommend drilling test holes to confirm the results of our resistivity imaging. Now, the left there is a cross-section through the earth. Now, where that cross-section exists exactly, if you look at the air photo to the right, and the upper right-hand corner there, you'll see the yellow line. That represents the image that you're seeing there on the left. That's the location of that image. And then the green dot there is showing the location of the confirmation boring that we're recommending to drill. But that particular site there, go down to 635 feet. That blue line, horizontal line at the top, that is where the water table is right now. And that's based on, we know that based on water level data that was captured back in the winter months, back in January and February, by the Water Resources Board and USGS. So this is the most up-to-date water level data we have. So what's nice is you can see there the green line on the bottom, that represents 60 ohm meters. We think that's where the bottom of the Ogallala is. Now the blue vertical line you see over there on the right hand of that resistivity image, there's a pipeline there. There's an oil and gas well out there about the center of the section out there, and there is a little gas line that runs from the well that takes it up to the transmission line. But that image, that just shows you where that line is, and so you can see it's very conductive. It shows up blue, but it's just pointing that out. It's not geological in nature. Next slide, please. Okay, this is you see there on the right hand side, you can see where this image is, and you can see the yellow dot in the middle of the image. So this is where we want to drill another confirmation boring. This one to 750 feet. Again, the green line there represents 60 ohm meters, and that looks to us to be about the bottom of the aquifer. Now, if you'll notice the blues and kind of the pinks over there on the left side of the image, we think those are low resistivity shales associated with the Permian that underlies the aquifer. I mentioned a minute ago there may have been some dissolution of gypsum in those beds, and if that's the case, that water would be very conductive. It's got a lot of sulfate in it. We think it's probably bound in the formation. In other words, those are fine-grained sediments. That water's not going to move. But we want to drill. I'll show you on one of the other images. We want to drill that and see exactly what that is, because we want to make sure that when we put a well in there, that when we go to pumping on it, we don't lower the head in the aquifer and cause higher TDS water to migrate up into the freshwater aquifer. Next slide. Okay, this would be the 800 footer. You can see we got a lot of sand there, it looks like, and that sand looks like it traveled all the way down to the bottom of the channel. We had to, if you'll notice the green line, it flat lines down there. That was the limits of our imaging that that's as far down as we could image, about 750 feet. That clearly goes below 750 feet, and that's why we believe we need to drill to at least 800 to get to the bottom of the aquifer. Now, one of the things I'd like to point out, if you look at the blue line at the very top of that image, the horizontal blue line, that again is the water table. So if you look at the distance, if you look at where we have the well, the test hole positioned in there, you can see that from that blue line at the top of the water table down to the bottom, you can see how much of that would be saturated with groundwater. Conversely, if you look over there to the right, on the right-hand side of the image, we would only drill maybe about a couple of 100 feet and we'd be at the bottom of the aquifer there. So these images, what they're showing you are these old paleo channels, which goes back to the geologic model we looked at the very first. And this confirms, our modeling, what we think is going on out there. Next slide. This is going to be the boring that we're going to drill to test that low resistivity, that purple down there in the bottom. Again, we want to understand what that is. We want to know if it's low resistivity clay or shale, or if there are any conductive fluids that are bound in that. Next slide. And then this is one of the other ones we'll drill. Notice it's not quite as bright orange in there, so we think this is probably coarse sand, but doesn't look like we have the brighter oranges in there, so maybe there's not much gravel at that particular location. And then the next slide. Again, drilling to the bottom of the aquifer. It looks like most of the sand and gravel is kind of up in the middle part of the section, but we'll go ahead and drill to the lower part because there should still be sand down at the bottom. But we'll have lots of saturated thickness there. And then the last slide should be the last of the 7 boreholes that we're recommending. But again, looking at the bottom of the aquifer there, the green line, drilling that to about 720 feet. And again, if you look at the top of where the water table is versus the bottom of the aquifer, you got this, this nice channel cut that's in there. So we looks like we have lots of saturated thickness there. That's over 400 feet of saturated thickness, and that's pretty substantial. So that really concludes what I wanted to show you this evening. I know we went through it kind of fast, but I'm be happy to answer any questions and go through anything in a little more detail if you have the time. So ask away. Okay. So go to the last slide, I guess. Well, that was the next step. But we're going to drill the confirmation boring. That's what we're proposing. And we're working on putting together the scope of work and the costs associated with that now. We've been working on it. We're going to get with Mike and we'll be talking about that next week at the OML conference. So we're already underway, but we're recommending drilling the 7 confirmation borings. And that's so we can characterize the lithology. We want to get some groundwater samples. We want to look at the water quality. And then based on all of that, then we will select some well sites. And as a part of that, also we're going to run geophysical logs so that we can tie that with the resistivity data, because one of the logs we record is a resistivity log. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, any questions you have, I'm happy to go over anything you want to talk about.
You have your own crews, or are you more of you oversee and then you hire out?
Geophysics was subcontracted. Astus LLC out of Loveland, Colorado, did the geophysical work for us. The chief technical officer is Todd Hallahan. Todd is a professor up at Oklahoma State. The technology we used, he developed it and perfected it with Oklahoma State and is the only one licensed to use that technology. And I think you could see from the images, we got excellent images, excellent data. And so that we subcontract out as we would drilling. But as far as the interpretation work and the mapping and GIS work, we do all of that. Other questions?
Before we go any further, thank you, Jim. You got a couple of cheerleaders with you, so we need to introduce them if they'd like to step up there next to you. Susan Patty and her partner Kurt. They've been doing some consulting for us also.
I didn't know if you were doing the introduction or I was.
I guess you can.
That Susan Paddock and her partner, Kurt, and they've been helping us they're going to be helping us with getting with some of our elected officials and people at the Water Resources Board. Because one of the things when we develop this, we want it to last a long time. We'd like to see it last 50 years or more. And the Water Board is currently doing a study, a maximum annual use study. And so what we want to do is make sure that once that's done, we're able to work with the Water Resources Board so that we can ensure that we have a long line project out there with water supply for a long time in the city. But I'll let you guys talk a little bit more about what you do.
Why don't you come over here? Why don't you come over to the podium so we can hear you?
I'm loud anyway.
I know you are, but we wanted Susan up there because she's better looking than you are.
Well, we'll be very brief because I know you've got lots of business, but I'm Susan Paddock. I live in Ada, Oklahoma. I'm a former senator from Ada. I did a lot of water legislation. I like to say I did water before water was cool. Now water is the hot topic. So we are working with your amazing elected officials and your city manager because water is the most important thing. You cannot do all the things you do. You can't get up and bathe and wash clothes and feed your families and all these sorts of things and have economic development without water. So our focus is to help the city be successful in terms of finding funds, in terms of finding policies that are helping you be sustainable in your water bill. So water's, if you've got some rain, that's a good thing, right? I'd like to say we brought the rain, but we can't say that. But what we can say is that we're going to work very hard to make sure you have the water that you need, both in the short term and long term. And this thing that Jim has done with Ardura, incredible. Think about that. Those are water deposits that have not been able, the technology has not been able to find them before now. So good news for the short term and long term. We're going to make sure there's good news in the long term too. So this is my business partner, Kurt McKean, and I'll let you talk very briefly.
I'm not a scientist, and I'm a retired 30-year captain with OHB. And you guys are probably thinking, what's the village idiot doing here with water and geological surveys? But I'm actually a lobbyist. So Susan and I hooked up. We've done a lot of work since 2014 together at the legislature, and we started a business called M&P Strategic Solutions. So I do a lot of work at the Capitol, and I'm really excited for you guys. Everything that I've seen that Jim and his team has done, I think you guys have a really good chance. And I don't want to speak out of place here, but from everything I've learned and watched, there's a really good shot that you guys got a ton of water that's going to be a quick Band-Aid for you guys, which will be great. Because I know you guys, water is crucial here, and I know you're running out of it. I'm a 2-time combat veteran. Served in Desert Storm, and when I stayed in the reserves, I got recalled after 9/11. Took a vacation to Anbar Province in Fallujah, and then did some time in Bagram Air Base. And I was not involved in this last blunder, but I was retired by then. But anyway, other than that, I'm a bureaucrat now. So glad to be part of the team.
Based on his prior life, lobbying and consulting, you know, he doesn't have to worry about the guns and all that.
Well, I'm the guy that sells small things, so I don't.
But anyway, we're excited. Right now, the timing is critical with the comprehensive water plan that the state does every few years. And so we'll be providing input for them also. So thank you all for letting us be here. Guymon's a great community.
Yeah, hope your pheasants come back.
Things are good, right? He's been talking about all the milo crops because we're both bird hunters. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. We will move forward. Agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action to approve application for payment number 1 for Caldwell Tanks Incorporated in the amount of $151,753 for the 300,000-gallon elevated water storage tank project. Application is attached. Do I have a discussion or a motion? And this is part of the money we borrowed to put up the water towers.
Yeah, I could tell a little story on this. I mean, this was a project that was set in motion, 3 or 4 years ago. And when I came on about a year ago, I kind of scratched my head. I said, well, why are you building water tanks when you really don't have any water put in them? Now I can say, we're building water tanks, we'll have water in them soon. So.
Pre-planning.
That's right.
So I have a motion.
Make a motion that we approve application for payment number 1 for Caldwell Tanks in the amount of $151,753 for 300,000 gallon elevated water storage tank project, item 6.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Idson.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 7 is discussion and possible action to approve application for payment number 1 for Gates Utilities LLC in the amount of $101,512.74 for the Northeast Ground Storage Tank Project. Application is attached. Questions, discussion?
Make a motion that we approve payment number 1, for Gates Utilities LLC, in the amount of $101,512.74, Northeast Ground Storage Tank Project, item 7.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Idson.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 8 is discussion and possible action to approve purchase and payment for a new case 580 backhoe to replace Unit 291 in the Sanitation Department for $92,000 on the Oklahoma State contract. Staff report and trade-in quotes attached. Mr. Shannon, have anything?
Yeah, this is the backhoe that's used out the transfer station to pack the trash. It absolutely wore out. And Tracy went in and found one that was on the state contract. They're hard to find, but this is meant to be. I mean, normally we'd probably be waiting 2 or 3 years, but there's one down there with their name on it, ready to come to Guymon and go to work. So.
Any discussion, questions, motion?
I make a motion that we approve the purchase and payment to the new Case 580 backhoe to replace the Unit 291 in the Sanitation Department for $92,000 on the OK State contract.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Idson.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 9 is discussion and possible action to approve change order number 3 for an increase of $3,515.03 to UTS for additional materials for the gas installs for the AMI project.
Mayor, I'd like to make the recommendation to table this item and the following item. We found some discrepancies kind of in the 11th hour.
Okay.
Make a motion that we table item 9, item 10.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Setzer.
Aye.
Idson.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 11 is discussion and possible action to declare old water and gas meter surplus and authorize advertising for bids to sell as scrap metal.
Just declaring surplus after the automated meters, the new ones in. I'd like to take you on a tour someday. If you ever want to see what 10,000 gas meters and water meters look like piled in the corner, we got it just right next door.
It's good website material.
Oh, it's unbelievable, but they need to go.
Okay.
Make a motion that we declare old water and gas meter surplus and authorize advertising for the bids sale as scrap metal, item 11.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Idson.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 12 is discussion and possible action to authorize the city manager to advertise for bids on the 2023 water field project and arrange for financing of Phase 1.
Well, Mayor, this is long awaited. It's going to be history made. It's one of those that we're going to have to do up front to make sure there is good water, good safe water. And the bids and everything are being prepared now. And the financing is arranged, but there's still going to have to be some resolutions to be passed to use the Oklahoma Water Resources. So they're just giving us permission to get it kicked off.
Okay. Any questions,
This is
discussion?
a good start for our future.
I make a motion, we authorize the city manager to advertise for bids for the 2023 Waterfield project and arrange for financing for phase 1.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 13 is a discussion and possible action to authorize advertising for bids for a new center pivot for the wastewater department to replace the number 7 center pivot.
We've got one of the pivots out there, I don't know how many billions of gallons that she's run through, but it just wore out. And it's our effluent that we get rid of through ODEQ special permit, so it needs replaced.
Just a question?
And it's been budgeted in capital, so we're good. We're good.
Any questions, motion, discussion?
I make a motion, we authorize advertising for bids for the new center pivot for the wastewater department to replace the number 7 center pivot.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Setzer.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
We've got 5 ayes.
Agenda item number 14 is new business. We have none. Agenda item 15, and we've got one more deal for the employees' payment after this retirement fund. Agenda item number 15 is reports from city manager and council members.
Mr. Mayor, I laid before you the reports from code enforcement, police department, fire department. Please take some time to read this. The police department and the fire department, I think it's probably one of the busiest months, I mean, in history on both departments. We're pretty blessed having those young men and ladies taking care of us and protecting us, and I appreciate that. Also, the code enforcement, they look like they left, but that department, what is it? They're working on 1,473 cases today. That's 1,000. It just takes us time to get things done, so I applaud those. It's nice having people work for you that take care of their business. I'm going to touch on some of your finances, or our finances. Wow, we're 66% through the year already. It's mind-boggling. Just kind of hit on some top. We had revenue of $23 million, expenditures of $19 million. So, we've got money coming in. We're taking care of business, spending it wisely, and that's for all of the department heads. I don't have to worry about it. It's nice to get a full financial package every month, and I don't fret it because I know automatically that they're taking care of their budgets and spending accordingly. So I appreciate that. I've got a groundbreaking. I want to call it open house, but this Friday, 1 o'clock, the Department of Transportation, we joined forces with them and the Chamber of Commerce, and to have a groundbreaking. They're going to totally reconstruct Highway 54 all the way through Guymon. 1 o'clock. I hope y'all can make it. We're going to say a little word and start moving a lot of dirt. So.
1 o'clock where?
At Fire Station number 2 out by Southwest 5th.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Mr. Alvedras?
I have nothing. Oh, Guymon Tiger football team's 3-0.
Yes, we are.
Sort of Josh wasn't going to say nothing.
I beat him to it.
You stole my thunder.
I know, sorry.
Mr. Iverson?
I'm kind of on the staff.
Anything tonight?
Nope.
No? Josh?
Yeah, if I could speak freely for a little bit. I didn't realize that we were in the business to protect people's investments. I thought we were elected officials to make sure that the betterment of Guymon was pushed forward. It's really struck me as kind of disheartening that we couldn't pass a zoning issue today because of an issue with protecting somebody's investments? That's not our job. Who's going to make sure that I make money on my next investment? I mean, if 90% of the people around Honey's complained about the smell, would we just shut it down and change the zoning? No, I don't think we would do that. We are to make sure that the Guymon is moving forward as a community. And also, as somebody who sits on a commission, it's very frustrating when you spend a lot of time on an issue to make sure that it's been, all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted, everything's legal and moving forward, everybody votes for it on your commission, and then somebody at the city council who has a few complaints from the general public shuts it down. It's very disheartening from someone who's involved in all of these other things. Right down the street from that proposed zone is a flag that hangs up and it says, "Don't tread on me," and it flies every single day. If that was your property and somebody told you that you couldn't do something on that property, wouldn't you be a little pissed off? This man has property. He wants to do something better with the community, better for the community with it, and we shut it down tonight. Not the commission, nothing illegal, but people on this city council right now shut it down because 10 people decided to send you some letters and make you some phone calls. It's disheartening, very much so. Because there's some of us that want to see this community move forward, and some of us are grinding the gears. And some of us have been fighting this fight for a very long time, and this has been a problem for years. We've had our housing problem for years. And it's incredibly dissatisfying to sit here right now among you guys, and that's our issue. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Sanchez.
I have no comments.
Okay. I'm good. Again, remember the football, they did homecoming last week, they're winning. Like what, the volleyball in the grade school or junior highs. Our kids are out there. Okay, we'll adjourn as the Guymon Utility Authority. Will reconvene as the Guymon Employee Retirement Fund, whatever it is. Retirement Board. We've already done agenda item number 1 and 2. Agenda item number 3 is approve the minutes of the special meeting on May 9th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve the minutes special meeting May 9th, 2023, item 3.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Stetser.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
5 ayes.
Agenda item number 4 is discussion and possible action on a request for lump sum distribution for Robert E. Stout. Robert's an employee and he wants a lump sum distribution of his retirement.
Make a motion that we request for lump sum distribution for Robert E. Stout, item 4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Sanchez.
Aye.
Stetser.
Aye.
Alvedras.
Aye.
Hudson.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
5 ayes.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Your Honor.
For just a second, you're not leaving, are you?
Your Honor. Your Honor. You didn't hear me.